On June 10th, you were quoted in the China Daily as, quote, "We don't expect China at this stage to take on a national cap." You've been advocating for the national cap in the Waxman-Markey bill. Why is a cap good for us and not good for China?
Well, look, I think it would be great if China took on a national cap. I don't think that's the only way to go. And again, I think that, as I said earlier, China, when talking to Mr. Inslee, China is in a kind of hybrid position. China is obviously a developing juggernaut. It's got a very powerful economy. It's also still, in many respects, developing. So it's somewhere in between. And I think that what we need to get from China is a set of actions that are strong. Now look at what they have, what they're currently doing right now includes a 20% cut in their energy intensity. I think that that is something that's actually economy-wide. It's not a cap in the same way that we're talking about, but it's significant. I think that, and they have they've got a 15% by 2020 renewable energy standard. They've got vehicle standards that are pretty much comparable to ours. They've got a whole suite of other measures for efficiency and the like. It's not, I mean, on the one hand, it's significant and it's doing a fair amount. On the other hand, they're growing so fast that their emissions are still going up a lot. They need to do a set of policies that add up to a national reduction in their emissions, right? That's the thing that we're most fundamentally interested in. If they did a national cap, that would be great. I don't think they're going to do that yet, and I think that I don't think it's crucial for us that happen as long as there's a set of policies that add up to a real reduction compared to.
See, I'm concerned that the Chinese are taking advantage of the differentiated language in the Bali Agreement, basically to cook the math in their favor. The Chinese economy is recovering from the worldwide recession faster than ours. Maybe that's because their stimulus package was more effective than the ones that we have employed. But the projection that I've heard is that the Chinese GDP will go up by about 50% from 2005 to 2010. Now, a 20% cut in energy intensity means that they still emit 30% more in emissions, and that certainly is not going to have the economic impact that the caps in the Waxman-Markey bill are going to impose on the United States. And the Byrd-Hagel resolution basically said the Senate wouldn't ratify a treaty unless it met 2 points. One is that it was worldwide in application, and secondly, that it didn't hurt the United States economy. And if we're reducing our emissions below where we are now, and China is still allowed to increase its emissions by 30%, I just can see more wealth and more jobs being outsourced from the United States to China. And that's not anything that I'm willing to support. I don't think the American public will support it either. So how do we deal with this issue?
Well, Congressman, I think that what we have to keep our eye on is again the robustness of the Chinese program. I think in the right circumstances, and we don't know what we've got yet, but in the right circumstances, what you'd like to see is a set of actions that where they are reducing emissions compared to their business as usual path, which is at least in some broad way comparable to or in the range of comparability with what we're talking about. And I think that's possible. Now we don't have that yet. We don't know yet, but that's what we're pushing toward. I mean, again, the reductions that they have been making over this 5-year period, they're not enough, but they're actually fairly significant as compared to where they would otherwise be. And that again is I think what we still need to be focusing on. Now, the other thing, just with respect to our own concerns about our own companies, is that the legislation that was passed out of the House includes a good deal of protection for energy-intensive, trade-exposed industries, basically getting all allowances relating to this legislation freeze so that those industries aren't going to pay any more into the 2020s. Not going to pay any more. So it's not a case that you've got this trade exposed industry and they're going to pay so much because of this bill and the Chinese aren't. They're not going to pay.
But, with all due respect, Mr. Stern, boiling the math down to the bottom line, meaning when you push the equals button on the calculator, what the Chinese say they're doing is they're cutting back on the growth rate of their emissions so that they'll still be 30% above 2005 levels, whereas Waxman-Markey says that we have to reduce our emissions to 17% below a lower baseline. And that math just doesn't add up. And I think that my constituents and the Senate ultimately will have to view whether the deal is a good one for the United States and is in our national interest.
Right.
And China going up 30% and us going down 17% with different baselines, in my opinion, flunks the good deal test by a long, long way. So I just urge you that you're going to have to figure out a way to figure out how to bridge the gap between plus 30 and minus 17.
Well, I appreciate your views, Congressman. I do think that with respect to the world broadly, with respect to the major developing countries, a very important issue is one actually which is referenced in the Leaders' Declaration from the Major Economies Forum, although not with a year specified yet, but that emissions are going to have to peak. They're not going to peak next year for China. They're just not. I mean, you can't take an economy that's growing like that and put the brakes on flat. I mean, if you look at what the trajectory is for China, it's completely different than the trajectory for the developed world. So you can't quite expect that. On the other hand, you can expect that over an appropriate period of time, the emissions growth slows, they peak, and then they start coming down. What that time is going to be an important part of the discussion.
Great. Chair recognizes the gentleman